Hello, and welcome to the Muses Lab, your destination for all things pleasure as it relates to our human experience, relationships, spirituality, and sexuality. I invite you to join me on this adventure of discovery and hope what you receive inspires you to become the muse of your life's journey. So, without further ado, let's explore. Hello, and welcome to the Muses Lab podcast. I'm your host, Siobhan L., and I have a second guest today. This is exciting. We got Miss Lily Shepard in the building. One day I'm gonna have like clap and recording and stuff, but y'all just gonna have to deal with this for now. But yeah, so excited to have you here.
So excited to be back.
This is awesome. So Spotify does like their wrap thing at the end of the year, right? So I'm looking at my metrics and I see the podcast that we did earlier this year. By the way, whenever you're listening to this, this is being recorded December 2023. So we recorded, I think it was like April or like August or somewhere between spring and summer of 2023. And our episode together was the most shared episode of the podcast. That blew my mind.
I'm gonna
Yes,
pop my collar and you
pop,
pop yours too, please.
yes. Popping collars, dusting shoulders, adjusting crowns. Amazing. That made me like super happy. But then that also affirmed that having guests on the podcast, specifically guests who are in alignment with the Muses Lab and have similar directional paths, are very important because that is what people want to hear. So you back.
I'm back.
Excitement. So when we got together to talk about what we were going to discuss, we had like a very lengthy conversation, and there were just a lot of gems being dropped. So one of the things we talked about was, do you want to be safe or do you want to be free? Hmm.
Come on. Just let that sit for a moment.
Do you want to be safe or do you want to be free? Because we're both content creators, we're both pleasure practitioners. Your one of your lanes is movement, sensual movement, body movement, and how to tap into that as a means of pleasure, reconnecting with yourself, reconnecting with your sensuality. I just direct people towards you because movement practice is not what I do, but you do it. So I'm gonna tell people to go to you so that they can learn. But I do talk about movement as a way to ground and center yourself. And there are a lot of people who are dibbling and dabbling in things that we have been doing for years, right? You are a trained professional dancer. You are actually um, academician in dance and dance historian. So this is literally what you do. So a lot of people are starting to come into pleasure practitioner and movement practice because it seems profitable, right? However, when you enter into these realms, right, it can be the safe thing to follow the blueprint of other people. But if you truly want to be free in what you do as a practitioner, it may mean that you have to go against how other people are zigging, right? You might have to zag instead of zig. So, how has that, as your career has evolved in this space, how has that influenced your movement now?
Well, it's interesting because as someone that is so connected to movement,
Mhm.
this idea of zagging when everyone's zigging felt foreign to me for a
Mhm.
very long time because now this is my business. And
Mhm.
so this idea of who I am as an artist and who I am as a businesswoman being two separate entities was something that I had to reconcile because in reality, it's I'm the same being, and those things can function together and function together well. But
Yeah.
I think when I started to look at what I offer and decide
Mm,
that I'm going to build a business around that, I thought that I had to be in business mode. And
mm,
I kind of turned off what had gotten me to the point where I was as an artist and as a facilitator. And now I started seeking out other input and other information from people in business, and then tried to put those things together to my frustration.
mm,
I was trying to take this over here and then but add this over there, and what are they saying about the
mm.
elements that you need to build a successful business, but what do I know to be true through my own lived experience and the people that I've worked with, and how do I make this all make sense? So it's been a struggle. I can't lie. It's been a struggle. And I'm just honestly coming out the other side and realizing that I can actually build this thing from the ground up exactly the way that I want to.
Mhm.
And that feels good for me.
I love that. Th- First of all, you touched on multiple points for me because also as an artist, you it I'm like, there's so many things happening right now. So I'm thinking about thread conversations when people are like, stop listening to these social media gurus telling you to monetize your passion and all this other stuff. Then I'm thinking about the kind of like the groundwork we set, like, okay, I need to monetize my business, like this is what I want to do for like ever, and I know I need to monetize it, so let me drop some money here to this coach, let me drop some money here to that coach. And you start accumulating all of this knowledge and you're trying to integrate it with your artistry, and it's like in resistance with one another. So people talk about like the starving artist, and it's not that we want to starve. It's when you are an artist, that's like your rib. It's like a part of who you are. So now you're telling me I got to sell myself. Because essentially, that's kind of like how it feels. It feels like you're taking a part of yourself and now you got to sell yourself and you have to capitalize yourself and you have to turn your art, your gift, your talent into this capitalistic thing in order for you to survive. So we end up becoming like a starving artist because you get tired of trying to capitalize yourself and trying to monetize yourself when you just want to create things and you just want to share those babies with the world, right? So I feel like there is a resurgence or a renaissance of the artist learning how to properly integrate ways to be in service to the community while still being an artist and not compromising themselves.
Absolutely. Because I don't like to feel like a commodity.
Mm,
This is a service. I have a service based business. It's a healing business. And there's something that changes when you are now in the marketplace. And what's been helpful for me is to ramp up my offerings in the community as a healing artist and make those very accessible so that I feel good about that. And I feel like I'm in my purpose and there are no blocks towards people being able to access what it is that I offer.
mm,
And that frees me up to then get out of this inner turmoil about charging and making money and putting a price on and all of these other things. But I think in the beginning, it's hard to do that because one, you want to say yes to everything. And it feels like, for me, I remember feeling like I had to squeeze the most out of every
mm.
transaction, right? Because I didn't know when I was going to get hired to do another workshop or when someone
Yeah.
was going to book me. Or so I felt like there was real scarcity mindset around it
Mm,
because I didn't know when my next gig was
yeah,
coming. And so moving from kind of being in a gig economy and to actually building a business that can sustain you, where you can actually begin to come to understand and come to expect a certain amount of revenue, you can actually project into the future. And it is helpful, some of
yeah,
those things that you learn about business and how to build sustainably in a way so that your income is repeatable. But no, I didn't know that.
yeah.
So I was in the struggle of, I don't know when the next time something is going to happen, so let me squeeze all that I can. And that didn't make me feel good inside, because
No, I
that's
feel
not
you.
what this work is ever about.
I I feel you because when you're trying to squeeze all that you can get out of it, now you feel like you starting to take advantage of people, and you don't want to feel like you're taking advantage of people. So not only do you feel like you're taking advantage of people, you feel like you're overusing yourself because when you try to squeeze all that you can out of at least one offering, then you burn yourself out. As opposed to building an ecosystem around an offering that can sustain itself over time. Like you don't know that in the beginning. It's like trial and error, and you get to those walls of burnout. You get to those walls of people feeling like, oh, like she always asking money up for this and money up for that. Every time I get an email from her, it's about selling something, and like I'm still trying to get through this first half of the course that we went through, and now it's like another course, and I don't even know if I'm ready for this course. So, you know,
We
it's
have to be comfortable, and that's,
Mhm.
I have to be comfortable that I have something to sell and offer in the marketplace.
Yeah.
I am selling you a service that will
Mm,
change your life.
mm,
And it took me a long time though to be comfortable with that. Like, yes, I am selling you something. This is an exchange.
mm.
This is, I feel like you are getting a lot of value from what I am giving in exchange for this currency. But it took me a very long time to even say those words out of my mouth. Yes, I'm selling you something. Yes, I have something to offer that I think is of great value to you. Yes, it costs money. Yes, it's not cheap.
I so I'm listening to you and it's striking a chord with me because I haven't actually got to the part yet where I can say, yes, this is an exchange. I am providing a service, and in exchange, you are providing currency for my time, for my acumen, for the space that I have to create, for the tools that I have to maintain in order to create this service offering. Haven't actually like touched and agreed with that yet. So you saying it is like, duh. Like, yes, this is what this is for. But also in the same vein, I'm adding value to your life. It's not just you are investing in whatever this service offering is, and this is a one and done thing. Like this is the only time that this information is going to be applicable to you. I'm providing tools for you to maintain and sustain whatever path and direction that you are moving forward in your life. So these are tools that I'm equipping you with. That's where the value comes in, because it's not a one and done thing. It's not, oh, you join this webinar, these are tools that's going to get you through the first half of the stage and the path that you're going on. These tools are actually sustainable foundational tools that as you begin to grow and scale, if you find yourself off track, you can circle back to what I taught you in the
And that's
beginning.
the thing, is that sometimes the things that we learn and concepts that we're introduced to don't even begin to take root until
Mm,
6 months, a year, 2 years, 3 years down the road. So it's absolutely not one and done,
hmm
but it's also up to the individual themselves
mm,
to connect to the material, to really immerse themselves in what they're learning, and to make the decision that what they're being offered, they're going to treasure, they're going to take seriously, and they're going to do their part as well. Because I think there's a lot of personal responsibility when you offer a service.
Yeah.
You feel personally responsible for people's outcomes.
Yeah.
They invested this money with you, they invested this time. You want to be able to say without a shadow of a doubt and guarantee that they will get X, Y, and Z result. When in reality, so much of it depends on how they show up for their part of the exchange
Mm,
as well. It's beyond just us, but I think that as service providers and as healing artists, we sometimes take all of that burden
mhm.
on ourselves.
You made a valid point. So, in like marketing, when we do social media ads, right, we always tell the client that you got to wait at least 90 days for you to start seeing results. But we live in such a microwave culture that people assume that once you do a paid ad, like in the first week, you're going to see some type of elevation or result. And it's the same with being a service provider. People think like once they take a class or they do a coaching session that great after this class or this coaching session like next week my whole entire life is going to change, and it's very unrealistic for people to assume that, right? So then it's dual. It's knowing that there's a timeline that it takes for all of this information to be applied, right? Because now you have to learn and apply what you've done. So there's an application process, but then there's a consistency process on your part as the person who has received the information. So if you're not willing to show up and do the work after the class, because showing up to the class is one part of the work. The second part of the work is what you do when you apply the tools and the information that you receive.
Say that. You have to apply. Otherwise, we are wasting our time, both of us.
Literally. Literally wasting time. I mean, like, thank you for your money, but I would rather you give me your money knowing that you're actually going to do what you said you was going to do when you came into this class, as opposed to just being, kind of cavalier with it and just spending money. Just, I want to take this class, I want to take this class, because you're accumulating all this knowledge and you have it stored in your mental filing bank, but what are you doing with it?
And we do that often. I've been guilty of that. I I have a membership to Orange Theory Fitness, right?
Mm,
I have a Pilates membership. And there was a point in time. Now, how often was I really going to these things? But it made me
mm,
feel good to be like, well, I have a membership. I have an Orange Theory Fitness and a Pilates membership. Ask me how often I was going. Okay. What does it matter? But I sure would flex. Yeah, well, actually, I'm signed up for Orange Theory and Club Pilates. So I really got that locked down. As far as fitness, I'm all good and wasn't going to a damn thing. But just the fact that I had signed up and they were steady taking my money made me feel like I was doing something.
mm.
And meanwhile, I'm making no forward progress, no movement. But we often do that with things, or we buy a thing and then it just sits there that we wanted so much. We saw it and we had to have it. We went back to go get it. And now that we have it, it's just sitting there.
The whole word. I'm just sitting here listening to you, reflecting on myself, because I am I am similar. Like, there are people who are really taking my money right now, and I haven't attended a webinar, I ain't attend a class, but I'm a member.
And you feel good about that.
You do.
It's better than nothing. I
Hmm.
have made an attempt. I have made a step, but what good is a step, if you're not willing to take the next one?
Building a bridge. My therapist taught me that. How do you build a bridge to your goal? And she gave that to me because at the time I was trying to move to California. I've been talking about moving to California for at least the last decade. I think that might be a dream deferred. But I was very serious about doing it. And I was like, I don't know. This is even before I got my ADHD diagnosis. And I was like, I don't know how to start. I don't know how to get there. And she said, well, how do you build a bridge? What's the first thing that you have to do? And I was like, save money. And she was like, that's step one, save some money. Then you start moving towards the next step because you can't get to the other side of your goal unless you build a bridge to get there. And I haven't seen this woman in almost 5 years because she was like, you're fine. You don't need to see me anymore. Lie. I need a therapist. But that, if nothing else, she taught me that resonated with me. And when I get lost in the direction that I'm trying to go, I always go back to how do I build a bridge?
Yeah. And you can't just put one part down and
Mm,
decide you're done.
mm,
You will not make it to the other side.
mm. Yeah, because that's giving delusion, right? I know we all talk about being like master manifestors and creating the reality and creating our experience and reality, our desired reality, right? But there is actual application of things that goes into that. We can't just build the step and be like, all right, the rest of the bridge is just gonna manifest itself. I mean, that may happen for some people. I'm not saying it doesn't, but for the majority of us, there is work required. So we make the attempt, like we attempted to join Pilates, we attempted to join whatever type of pleasure practitioner memberships and things like that. But the work goes into us actually showing up to the class, to the offerings, to the webinars, engaging with the community. That's where the application of the work comes in. So yeah,
Yeah,
it's
the process, we are
mm,
just focused on the result and we want to see the start and the
mm,
finish. And we don't care what it looked like in the middle. We want to see I started at this and 90 days later I ended at that.
mm,
And no one is invested in the process. And
mm,
I think that that's a big part of the problem. We want to rush through and just give me that result. Like
mm,
what? I'm gonna be more confident. I'm gonna be this. I'm gonna be that. I'm gonna lose some weight. I'm gonna make some money. Show me the end result. And I think that's what many people are tiring of in marketing, in how
mm,
people are presenting these offerings and these things and making these promises. And I've
mm.
stopped doing that. I've
Yeah.
stopped doing that. I've lengthened the amount of time that an engagement with me is,
Mm,
because I feel like I don't want to sit up here and tell you in 2 weeks this, in 4 weeks this, in 90 days this. We're going to work together for 6 months or for 12 months, because that is baseline how long it takes to acclimate
mm,
to envisioning your life in a different way, moving your body in a different way,
mm,
getting your nervous system in a different state than what it was. These things take time. And so I've let go of any 60, 90-day anything.
yeah.
And I've also started putting more emphasis on the personal responsibility and stop
Mm,
saying things like, I'm going to promise you this, or working with me, you're guaranteed that. And it's like, you're guaranteed to get what you put in.
yeah. Mm,
I'm a guide. I'm going to
mm,
give you every tool that I have. I'm going to support you. I'm going to hold you accountable. I'm going
mm,
to cheer you on. I'm going to hold space for you, but I'm not going to guarantee you anything.
mm. I love that. As you're speaking about that, I'm thinking about we were talking about navigating expert culture. So a lot of that, I feel like that ties into people making these 60, 90-day promises or you'll change your life in 30 days, which is like unrealistic, right? Because it takes 21 days to start a habit. not even to maintain it, like to be consistent in the habit. That's like 21 days. And then it takes you about 30 to 90 days for it to become part of your natural routine, right? So we're talking 6 months for it to just now be embedded into your personal ecosystem, right? So,
And what would happen? What would happen if we, instead of doing six 60-day programs,
mm,
just found one consistent thing, one thing to do for a year? It sounds so
mm,
big, and no one wants to dedicate that amount of time, and no one wants to wait that long. But wouldn't it be so much easier, instead of doing something for 60 days, feeling good, feeling confident, letting it fall off for a month or two, getting back on the horse for another 60 days, doing it, feeling great again, falling off the horse, putting it to the side, coming back on? That's what most people do.
yeah.
And you constantly get that rush of, I'm starting a new thing. I'm doing a new thing.
Mm,
I'm back on. This time is going to be different. But
yeah.
it often isn't. And if we could just
Mm,
give ourselves an extended period of time,
mm.
I think we might be better for it. I
I
know.
love
Actually, I don't think I know.
I love that because it's also making me think about hybrid culture. And I don't know when our world started to transition into like having hybrid roles where you're doing multiple things in one and you're not realizing you're doing the work of two people as a singular person, right? So I feel like because of hybrid culture, we think that we can learn something in 30 days or 90 days and then become an expert in it. And then I can transition into something else when you haven't actually mastered it, right? So when you do a master's program, it takes you 18 months to get a master's degree.
Talk about it.
Literally 18 months to get a master's degree.
I'm sorry, you want to teach me how to do what? And you want to teach, wait, you've been doing this for this long. You got a certificate, and now you want to teach me how to do it?
What do you cannot be an actual expert because it literally takes you 18 months to get a master's degree, right? So that's when, and that's after you,
Prerequisites that that you
yes,
have to have already completed
correct,
before.
correct. Like you need to have a bachelor's degree before you get a master's degree. So now you have like 12, 16 years of schooling before you can even get a master's degree. And you want to tell me that you can master something in 60 days? You've lied to yourself.
But they are out there.
They are.
They are out there, and we are all distracted by
Mm,
who speaks the loudest, who is the catchiest, whose content is engaging, and the
mm.
audio is trending. Oh, we love to
Tell it.
see it.
Tell it.
We love to see it. But I think expert culture is on a decline. I can tell by the types of content even that I'm seeing, that I feel so grateful for, when someone writes a well thought out article.
Mhm.
Or I don't, and it's not like I mind reels and jumping around and pointing. I'm not bothered by that. I love movement. Give me theatrical. I like to
Yes.
see the creative expression behind how you're going to relay the information to me.
Yeah.
And I can tell more easily when I'm being deceived by a bunch of loud talking, pointing, trending audio, lifestyle, luxury content. It's much easier to decipher now. because I used to get excited. Like, I want to see more from this person,
Mm-hmm.
and I would get on the roll with that and start going down the rabbit hole and looking at the content. And the more I looked, the more entertained I was. And also, the more I realized there's really
Mm-hmm.
no substance here. I have lingered on this page because I like what I see.
Mm-hmm.
But what about this content tells me that this person, A, is an expert, B, is living what
Mm-hmm.
they're teaching?
Mm-hmm.
To me, this kind of seems like they take all this off when the camera goes off
Yep.
w- because I don't get a full picture.
Right.
And Instagram is what it is. We
Mm-hmm.
no one gets a full picture.
Exactly.
However, I do feel when someone is marketing a service or to be a coach or to be a provider of some sort, you can tell if you really pay attention for whom is this a performance and for
Mm.
whom is this the way that they live and operate in the world.
I love that because that ties into the practitioner versus persona, and a lot of people have the persona down. Like they have mastered the aesthetics, but you can master aesthetics. That's easy, right? Because all that is just copying what other people are doing and then putting your little spin on it. So you can master aesthetics, but to master the practice of something, to master the information, the knowledge, the wisdom, and the tools. You can't do that in 60 days.
That is true. And also, I feel like we would be remiss if we didn't speak about the amount of privilege that there is
Mm,
that folks that have resources
mm,
and can have the best quality video content and
yeah.
have someone around always capturing and be in these beautiful spaces and
Hmm.
places and spend money on boosted posts and ads and have that behind them
Mm,
because there are so many wonderful people that are doing healing work that you will never that it's not glossy. It's not a
yeah.
glossy thing. It's not a it almost feels like and it's better that way, right?
Hmm.
It feels
Mm.
better that way. I love when I go to someone's class or experience and I'm like, well, what's your Instagram? Like, oh, I'm not on there. Oh, I love that even more. I honestly do because this is just a thing that happened. This was just a beautiful exchange that happened
Hmm.
and that's where it lives and that's where it stays.
Yeah.
And I know that that doesn't even factor in. And I'm on Instagram, I'm on the things. Does
Yeah.
that make my experience any less authentic?
Mm,
It doesn't. But there is something about getting that content when it
yeah.
becomes content, right?
Mm,
And it's no longer just the experience. You want to get content out of it.
yeah.
For example, a friend of mine and I were just talking about Renaissance. I believe we talked about it a little bit on
Yeah.
Threads too. And this idea that Beyoncé was giving us this intimate peek into who she is as a
Mm,
mother and as a creative force and as a director and producer and her moments with her mom and her husband and her children and that forced intimacy though because it's content. Is it
mm,
how much are we really seeing? The camera is always rolling, and that in itself makes for a different experience.
mm,
It does. I've worked in my offerings to keep some things outside of that.
Yeah.
Will be classes where I'll say to everyone, hey, camera's going to be on. If you don't wish to participate or be on this side of the room, because not everybody wants that. But also, it's a thing. We
Yeah.
want people to get the feeling and know and spread the word and come to our events and our offerings. So it's a very fine line. But the world that we live in is rough.
Yeah.
It's rough because what really is intimate then? What really, the camera's always rolling. Even now, I'm getting
Yeah.
content.
Mhm.
We're
Mhm.
having this conversation. My camera is on. I might say something worth sharing.
Yeah. Yeah. I think there, because it leads me to what is performance and what is, genuine and authentic. And even though I feel like with us, the camera's rolling and we're recording the audio and things of that nature, we'll go back and we'll listen and we'll pull out some gems and that's shareable content, right? And for us, that's a way for people to better connect to us because I feel like in these moments, it's supposed to be intimate, but not intimate so much as you're getting like a sneak peek, but like intimate as I'm involving you in the conversation, right? So now you get to be involved in the conversation, and that may spark conversation on the audience's end or whoever's sharing, right? That may spark conversation for you, and that may spark content for you. So you may be inspired by this, right? But I feel like things like I haven't seen Renaissance yet. Hopefully, I'll see that before the end of the year. But even when you have reality shows or those things that's like behind the scenes, because I've seen Homecoming, so I know Renaissance and Homecoming are kind of on the same vein. There's a that type of intimacy is like you think this was two snaps in a circle, but this is what it takes to produce this huge production and some of the sacrifices that you have to make if you want this level of excellence. So I feel like it's that form of intimacy. Like if you want this level of excellence, this is what it takes. And it's supposed to be inspirational content. It's intimate because it's behind the scenes, but it's a different perspective of intimacy and behind the scenes. Like we're being into our intimate perspective here is the sharing of information, and I feel like that intimate perspective is so you don't think this is easy.
Yes, a show and tell per se.
Mhm.
A show and
Yes.
tell per se. And it's important to highlight that performance isn't always a bad thing. I think that
Mm.
we're you're so performative. It's
Yeah,
not
we talked about
real.
that the last
Yeah,
podcast
it's
too.
not
Yeah.
real. And when you are a leader
Mm.
and you are teaching or you are guiding and you are in a leadership role or position,
Mm.
there is a performance element.
Yeah. True.
There is. You are performing. You
Yeah.
are using your body movements, your tone of
Mm.
voice, your expression to convey something. That's
Mm.
that's what people are gravitated towards. So I
Yeah.
think it's important that we don't go down the path of performative or performance is always a bad thing. I just
Yeah.
posted something on Threads about yoga teachers,
Mm.
and
I saw that.
I said that you can guide in a way that feels natural and authentic to you.
Yeah.
Sometimes we step into these roles and we see how it's always been done. And I was
Mm.
saying, you don't have to speak like
Yes.
this when you hold a yoga class, and you don't always have to infuse your poses with stories of how the universe is supporting you through this pose, because that's what we are used to seeing from yoga teachers, and we think that in order to be effective, we must come into this space and project that. I can't stand that when I go to classes and I'm like, what do you really sound like? Can you please talk how you normally sound? Because I know you don't talk like that. And so it's a fine balance, right? Because
Yeah.
you do want to speak in a way and in a tone that conveys power and
Yeah.
authority. You just don't want to be like, hey guys, so can we do some downward dog? I get that. And also, you can be yourself. You don't have to like conform to what you think a yoga teacher should sound like.
Yeah.
Because I live in Austin, and boy, when I tell you, it's hilarious. It's hilarious. And then it's hilarious to see the instructors like after class. It's like night and day. It's like night and day. And it will never stop being amusing to me ever. But that's kind of how I feel about some of the Instagram folks
Yeah.
and the presentation of it all. And we get to be different ways in different spaces, right? We
Yeah.
we do
Yeah.
get to do that. But I think I want to learn from people who are living what it is that I'm seeing.
Yes.
That they are living that and they can tell me about that.
Hmm.
When I get on a call, I want to know more than just about your program and the
Hmm.
cost and how many times a week we meet on Zoom and what are the expectations. And I want to hear something from you about how this work has impacted your life, like from your mouth, not on your
Yeah.
bio page. I want to hear that personal story because I think a lot of us don't do our due diligence. We get
Yeah.
distracted by the bright, shiny,
Hmm.
glossy reels that are so fun. And we just want to fork over our credit card without doing the due diligence. And we can all be gotten, you know, no one is above being
Facts.
scammed,
Facts.
but we have to at least try.
Yeah. I I I resonate with all of that, particularly with the performance part, because we did talk. I think that was our topic for the last podcast. Like, there's nothing wrong with performance, right? And I agree that there is space for that because it's necessary when engaging with people that there is a performance that comes out, right? But then there's like that natural performance that shows up in your leadership and your authority, and then there's the over performance of the quote unquote yoga teacher that is trying to emulate something that's not natural to them, right?
Hmm.
And I think when I'm thinking of performance, I think about that yoga teacher that's trying to emulate things that's not natural to them. And I'm learning to, and thank you for teaching me this. I'm learning to differentiate between that natural expressive performance that's necessary to assert yourself and to stand firm in what you know, and the emulation aspect of following a blueprint, not even a template, following a recipe that people create, that it has to be specific these specific steps in order to um, prove that I am this person, as opposed to being having your lived experience and your knowledge and your education and the things that you have learned show up as yourself in the performance expression, right? Because now what you're saying is that embodiment, through your lived experience, through your education, and through all the tools that you've acquired, allows you to perform and express yourself in a means of authority that's not an emulation of what you've seen other people do.
Ooh, that's good.
Yeah. Yep. Hashtag Lily taught me. Yeah. So that's really good, and I think that's important, particularly for persons who want that guided education who want to work with someone, who wants to work with a practitioner, these are notes that you should jot down. Like when you're going on someone's page, can you decipher between the persona and the practitioner? Is the performance a space of authority, or is the performance something that you see across multiple creators that have similar messages? Are they following the same recipe, right? Because templates you can adjust, but recipes have to be followed to the T. And a lot of us think we're utilizing a template when we're really following a recipe, right? Because recipe is science. You follow the recipe to the T, the measurements are exact, and that you will always get the same results when you follow the recipe. But when you have a template, that's a base, and you could customize a template for it to be specific to you. So, is your potential practitioner who you are sourcing or who you're fleshing out, do they have a template that they use that is specific to the knowledge and experience that they have, or are they following a recipe? Like, are people teaching you to follow a recipe, or are they giving you a template?
That's a great question. That's a great
Yeah.
question. And to that end, I would add, ask for a personal story.
Mm,
Ask them a real question
yeah.
and get a real human response.
Mm,
That has really worked well for me because I can read the bio and the information that's there, and I can get the information about what the program entails and how much it costs. But something about just asking a question
yeah.
about the work, or and a lot of people on a call will say, well, do you have any questions for me?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Ask a weird random question that maybe has nothing to do with what they offer. Just
Mm-hmm.
see, just get a human feel for who they are.
Yeah. I think that's important too because a lot of coaches and gurus or some or whatever, however they call themselves these days, they become so rote in the sale that they kind of mask their humanness, because it's really all about this program that I created, that's this recipe, that's 60 to 90 days, that's going to get you this result in 60 to 90 days, and I have to stick to this recipe, this recipe, so that I can rinse and repeat, right? So you miss the humanness. But I learned this. I'm gonna remember who said this, and I know I have it written down somewhere. Your lived experience is data, right? So in marketing they may call that anecdotal, but in our space as entrepreneurs, small business owners, creative practitioners, artists, our lived experience is data, and that's how we are able to show the breadth and the depth of our experience, because we lived it, we've experienced it, we know the highs and lows, we know the ups and downs, we know where the pivots are, we know where the humps are going to be. We can now intuitively utilize that data to be a guide and to be a source, because we've experienced it. So when you're having these conversations with people, if they can't recap their lived experience in the particular thing that they're selling, that is a problem for me.
That is a problem for me as well. And I think that we should get more comfortable with lived experience being
Hmm.
what we have to offer.
Yeah.
I think it becomes tricky when it's not presented up front.
Mm,
I have seen some coaches, practitioners that have all of the things.
yeah.
And when it gets to, okay, well, I am looking for some amount of qualification too. Like, what have you done in your background or in your past that qualifies you to do this work?
Right.
I have no training in
Mm,
anything. This is my lived experience. Now, for me as a consumer, if I see that off rip,
mm-hmm,
th- I'm okay. I want to know
mm-hmm,
more. versus
Right.
when I go through and I see and then about me and then down, down, down to the small print. Yeah, I
Mm-hmm.
actually have no training or no education in this. This is just my lived experience. I think it's two very different
Mm-hmm.
feelings that I get when I'm looking for someone. And it's still the same thing, right? The lived experience
Right.
is what it is, but I think it's in the way that it's presented
Mm-hmm.
that makes all the difference for me, because especially if you're selling me on a method
Yes.
or your framework or something, I want to know where that's coming from. And
Mm-hmm.
I appreciate and I can evaluate when I know that up front versus kind of feeling like it's snuck in somewhere. Then
Yes.
it makes me feel like you don't feel confident enough in your lived experience.
Mm.
So now I'm questioning the whole thing.
Mm. Yeah. I can speak for myself when I say there's that that really is a reason why I haven't moved forward in a lot of things, because everyone is looking for qualifications. And for me to say, well, my lived experience plus the universe for my qualifications. This was downloaded to me from spirit. Everyone is not going to resonate with that. So, me becoming my own case study has been very crucial for me, because I can create these frameworks, these tactics, these strategies. I can allow these things to be downloaded, but how am I applying it to my everyday life? And then how am I creating metrics and measuring the results? How am I tracking my progress when I'm applying these frameworks, these tactics, these tools? And I think when you present that up front, that's how you can quantify yourself, because you did it yourself. And even if you have friends or whomever to kind of beta test with you, that's how you can start to quantify and qualify yourself. Because if you have yourself plus two other friends who've experienced things, and now you have metrics that you can utilize, so it's still anecdotal, but you've been able to measure the progress based on the people who have participated in this framework, these tactics, and these strategies that you have created. And now you have some results to share with people. So that's how I'm learning that your lived experience, or not having to be in a certification course and utilizing your own gifts and talents to create things, that's how you can qualify yourself, because people have experienced it. So as
Hmm.
long as other people have experienced it, you can then speak to it as an expert.
Yes. And say it with your whole chest.
Chess. Yeah.
Also, say it with your whole entire chest. Because that's
Yeah.
the thing for me. Say it. Because there's so many people out here spouting whatever. But I know if I'm trying to
Mm,
lose 40 pounds, I want to learn how to lose 40 pounds from the person that lost 40 pounds,
that.
not from the gym rat who's like got all the six pack and looks great on Instagram drinking smoothies, but's been the same weight since high school.
Yes. Facts. Like, where are the fat people that's losing weight? I want to take their program.
That part.
Because they resonate with me. Their body looks like mine. So if their body looks like mine and these are methods that they're using and it's working for them, well, I want to do that too, because then that might work for me. But like you said, if you have been the same size since high school, you've been athletic all your life, and you came out with a fitness program, I don't see how that's gonna work for you,
Yeah.
friend.
You're just really good at working out. And I love that for you. But it's not the program for me.
Facts. Not giving what you think it's giving, friend.
Mm-mm.
Oh man, this has been wonderful. I don't want to keep you too long. So, because I know you got things to do because you booked and busy and all those things. But if there's anything that you are currently working on, or things that you have upcoming into 2024 that you want to share with the people, then please, please, please share.
Things are being completely torn down and rebuilt in 2024.
Listen.
And it's exciting and scary all at the same time. I just invite folks to connect with me. I'm on LinkedIn and Instagram and Facebook and Threads at Lily Shepard Moves.
Mm,
I do have a book called Pleasure Principles for Driven Women, Reclaiming Pleasure Through Movement. We can maybe add the link in there to that.
yeah.
It's available at Amazon and Target and Barnes and Noble and wherever great literary works are being sold.
Yes.
And yeah, I guess if I would leave the people with any one thing, it is do your due diligence when you are looking to invest money with someone that you feel can help you achieve a particular result. And always ask human questions. Don't be afraid to shake it up and go out of the script of sales conversation.
Yeah. I love
And
that.
trust
Shake
your
the
gut.
table.
Trust your gut.
Yeah.
Shake the table, trust your gut.
Yes. I love that. I love that. Like the safe, we asked a question like, do you want to be safe or free? And safe is the 60, 90-day program, but 6 months to a year might get you free.
That is the part. You just have to be willing to be in love with the process.
Yes. Yes. Ah, another great conversation.
Another
This
great
was
conversation. It's always a great conversation, Siobhan. It's always. Thank you so much for inviting me and having me back. I'm available whenever you call.
Oh, it makes me so happy. This was wonderful. Thank you so much for showing up and just showing up in yourself and just being all that you are. Thank you for being all of that. That is appreciated. I love that. And thank you all for tuning into the Muses Lab podcast.
Indeed.
And until next time. Thank you for tapping into the Muses Lab. I hope you enjoyed this week's adventure. Be sure to like this episode, subscribe on your favorite podcast platform, and share the wealth with others. Dive deeper into the lab by joining the Pleasure Frequency list at www.themuseslab.com. Receive weekly musings, early access, and exclusive drops, as well as discounts on products and services. Thank you once again for tapping in. Until next time.